Mexi.
Welcome, one and all, to the most uplifting day of the month, where we celebrate all of the wins that activists worldwide have been able to achieve through solidarity and fierce determination. I have some of my own PLN to share with you all today. My partner and I will be welcoming our first little baby comrade into the world at the end of December of this year. So I'm so glad that you've all been enjoying the rotation of hosts on this channel. It will certainly keep up while I'm on maternity leave, although I'll probably still be contributing something behind the scenes. Thank you to everyone who has shared and supported the channel, helping us to expand our team and to get more eyes on this often criminally underreported yet invigorating leftist news. So without further ado, let's get into it. Two Kenyan tribes are suing the UK government at the European Court of Human Rights for $200 billion for colonial abuses. The Talai and Kipsigis tribes state that the abuse included land theft, torture, and forcible exile to an insect-infested valley as punishment for resisting. Their insect bites led to deaths, miscarriages, and loss of livestock. Although the tribes were able to return once Kenya regained independence in 1963, many continue to suffer economic consequences from the theft of their land, even as that same land became profitable for multinational companies through neocolonial plunder. Today, some of the world's most prosperous tea companies like Unilever, Williamson Tea, Finlays, and Lipton occupy and farm these lands and continue to use them to generate considerable profits, the plaintiffs said in a statement. The UK has not made amends for their violation of the European Convention on Human Rights. The UK government has ducked and dived and sadly avoided every possible avenue of redress, said lawyer Joel Kimutai-Bosek. We have no choice but to proceed to court for our client so that history can be righted. Solidarity with the Talai and Kipsigis tribes and all peoples worldwide engaged in crucial anti-colonial and anti-imperialist struggle. On August 22nd, the Haitian anti-imperialist party Petite Dessalines, or PD, organized a major demonstration against the rising cost of living and increased violence in the country. The day marks the 51st anniversary of the Haitian Revolution, where enslaved Haitians organized an army that overthrew the veteran French military, giving the oppressed of the world a mighty example of successful struggle. Commemorating this day, PD led a number of marches from different neighborhoods to the Vertières Monument, and there were demonstrations throughout the country along with barricades set up along the main roads in Port-au-Prince. The crowd called for the resignation of Prime Minister Henry, characterizing him as a tool of the United States and the other big imperialist powers. We are sending strength to PD and the Haitian people to keep up the good fight. Ohio teachers, represented by the Ohio Education Association, have mobilized in two different school districts in a class battle against their employers. Again, on the 22nd of August, roughly 4,000 teachers came together in their state capital, marking the first teacher strike in the city since 1975. The strike ended a week later when they were granted a 3-year contract including a 4% raise for the next 3 years, reduced class sizes, restrictions on outsourcing teachers to private corporations, and a commitment for climate-controlled temperatures in all areas of school buildings by 2025 to 2026. Teachers in the northeast Ohio town of Niles were set to go on strike on September 1st, but the day before, members of the Niles Education Association were able to pressure school board officials to finally offer a fair contract. NEA President Tracy Leadsom said the amount of solidarity we have seen from other union members locally and statewide has been overwhelming. The support we have received from the OEA, Ohio Education Association, and the NEOEA, Northeastern Ohio Education Association, is a true testament to why we belong and the importance of continuing to stand together and fight for what's right. Congratulations to Ohio teachers. On Thursday, August 25th, under the banner of March in Defense of Democracy and Economic Reconstruction, over 1 million Bolivians rose up to ratify their support of the Movement Towards Socialism party. The mobilization included workers from a vast array of sectors, peasants, students, and members of various indigenous organizations and social movements. The march was organized by the Pact of Unity, a national alliance of grassroots organizations, and the Central Obrera Boliviana, the country's trade union center, in opposition to the far-right and capitalist attempts to destabilize the government and its socialist economic policies. One example of such an effort was right-wing opposition leader Luis Fernando Camacho attempting to provoke a coup d'etat against President Luis Arce. Those that participated in the mobilization in support of President Arce condemned Camacho and vowed that they would not allow another coup in the country like the one that was carried out in 2019 against former President Evo Morales. Incredible to see such solidarity among all sectors of the Bolivian working class. The National Labor Relations Board has issued a decision in a case involving Tesla. The NLRB has found that it is unlawful to prevent employees from wearing union insignia, including buttons and clothing, outside of special circumstances. This decision came after Tesla enforced a new policy which mandated that employees only wear black clothing or clothing with the Tesla logo on it during a union drive. Wearing union insignia is a protected form of workplace communication. It's also a long-held tradition for communicating solidarity among union members. This case represents an important win for the accelerating labor movement across the US and a middle finger to anti-union Space Karen. Cuba and Italy are collaborating on a COVID-19 vaccine. Cuba invented 5 vaccines to contain the virus in the public sector, showcasing the output and innovation that is possible using collaboration in scientific research. The 3 vaccines that have been approved for use to date have almost 90% efficiency, among the highest in the world. The Cuban government has been working together with other countries to expand production of vaccines, and Italy is the latest country to join the collaboration. Nicoletta Dentico, the head of the Global Health Program Society for International Development, stated this collaboration is a political initiative of great importance. It shows that science coming from Cuba is of value and the products are a very good standard. A European country doing this helps make space for Cuban products in the Western nations. The vaccine, which has been developed in the public sector and has a public patent, should not be limited to a few million people. We could not agree more. And more international solidarity with Cuba, a picnic held by the Portland and the Blockade of Cuba Committee gathered as part of an international effort to eliminate the Cuban embargoes. While Cuba has world-leading medical care, the blockade prevents them from getting necessary materials and parts that their healthcare system requires. Fundraisers have already been successful in delivering medical supplies to Cuba, and new fundraisers are in the works to supply medical equipment to help treat victims of the Matanzas oil fire. We need to see way more solidarity and anti-imperialist action from activists like this in the imperial core. We turn now to a big win for fast food workers in California. After workers organized strikes at over 350 restaurants across the state Senate passed the Fast Food Accountability and Standards Recovery Act, which will establish the Fast Food Council, an industry council for the sector on wage standards and other regulations. The council would give over 500,000 workers a seat at the table on issues like wages, health and safety, the right to be free from discrimination and harassment, and more. The law is the first of its kind in the US, with workers in other states pushing to pass similar legislation, such as nail salon workers in New York. Workers are now organizing to collect signatures to create the councils, but the fast food industry is trying to overturn the law, claiming it will harm businesses. Lizette Aguiar, who has worked at the McDonald's in Los Angeles for nearly 20 years, said we're going to keep fighting. We have a lot of opposition, but we have to keep showing we want our union. The Atlantic business and technology workers have won voluntary union recognition. The union was recognized after their card count revealed a supermajority in favor of unionization. This comes shortly after the editorial board of The Atlantic also won their union. This union represents 100 workers, and the new union's demands include increased equity and diversity in the workplace, better pay, and more opportunities for career development and growth. Congratulations to the workers. While the Google campus is famous for its food, the cafeteria workers themselves are generally contractors who work for other companies and are highly exploited. Although the labor movement has been making gains among cafeteria workers, this process has been slower in southern states. But this month, 4,000 Google cafeteria workers in Atlanta presented their manager with a list of demands and shared their plan to unionize. The same week, Sodexo, their employer, and the workers reached an agreement that should workers try to unionize, the company would not try to block it. The average unionized cafeteria worker at Google makes $24 per hour, and Sodexo's workers make only $15, all while housing prices in Atlanta have risen 18% this year. We are hopeful that we can quickly reach an agreement on a union contract that will bring these workers up to the same good standard enjoyed by union food workers at other Google cafeterias nationwide, said Dee Taylor, the president of Unite Here. There is no doubt that the first negotiated contract will contain a pay raise up to the standard of other Google cafeteria workers. Congratulations on the union! And 2 major strikes have been averted this month as unions flexed and won new contracts. The first was the highly publicized planned National Railroad Workers strike in the US. The strike had the potential to majorly disrupt supply chains and cost the US economy $2 billion in one day. After 20 hours of negotiations, the strike was averted as workers won a deal including a 24% wage increase and $5,000 bonuses, as well as important changes to existing policies on time off and set scheduling, which had been a crucial sticking point for workers who faced penalties for taking any time off. Incredible! And the second was the Lufthansa Pilots Union, who threatened a 2-day strike and won an annual pay increase of 8.2% starting in 2023, in addition to a 5.5% increase this year. The airline wanted to avoid a repeat of what happened last month, when ground staff went on strike, leading to 1,000 flight cancellations. Happily, the ground staff also won a pay increase. While the capitalists are making bank off of rampant inflation, what can I say but the union, my friends, makes us strong. Train tickets in Spain will now be free on all journeys under 300 kilometers or 186 miles until the end of the year. The initiative began in an effort to fight inflation and the cost of living, and will be funded by a windfall tax on banks and energy companies that have profited from rising interest rates and energy prices. There are caveats in that the 100% discount is only available on repeat trips, and you have to pay a 10 to 20 euro deposit, which will be refunded at the end of the year if you've taken at least 16 trips. However, we hope that activists will be able to push for permanent changes to transportation costs. Free public transportation is essential not only for social and economic reasons, but importantly for dealing with the climate crisis. And a big thank you to viewer Julianne for writing a synopsis of this next inspiring story from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Although corporate media reported that only dozens of people participated, between 200 and 250 people demonstrated in support of early childhood educators, or ECEs, on September 8th. Unionized and non-unionized daycares organized together and marched in solidarity to pressure the government to finally give ECEs the professional wages that were promised 17 months prior. Tired of waiting for their pay raise, at least 10 daycares in the city closed their doors voluntarily, while some that refused saw their staff participate regardless. Amazing! Daycares from all over the province outside of the city also demonstrated in smaller simultaneous rallies. With more actions being planned as we speak, major solidarity with early childhood educators in Nova Scotia. Ministers in Sierra Leone have taken a major step towards decriminalizing abortion and overturning the country's colonial-era law. This follows the 10th African Conference on Sexual Health and Rights held in Freetown, where almost 1,000 feminist activists, government and UN personnel, and community groups met to discuss how to eliminate sexual and gender-based violence in Africa. With some of the highest teen pregnancy and maternal fatality rates in the world, Sierra Leone activists have worked for years to expand access to reproductive health care, decriminalize abortion, and provide for safe birthing. A bill for risk-free motherhood has been backed by the president and the cabinet and is now before the parliament for approval. Feminist activist Josephine Camara said this is a landmark moment for girls and women in this country, and we would say all people as well, and it shows that we are now building a world where we can live in the most basic of dignities to make choices over our own bodies. The next one is a fun one, not necessarily a huge leftist win, but I think a palate cleanser nonetheless.
Holy shit, this may be the greatest Gen Z troll of all time. Seriously, stop what you're doing. This is a forced birther group in Missouri. They have an annual benefit every year. And this is the Gen Z resistance in Missouri. And they crashed that benefit. But it's not the fact that they did, it's how they did it. Resist played the long game. And they slowly sent in members to volunteer for them, a few at a time for months. They placed themselves on all different committees, including the benefit. They became in charge of seating arrangements, speakers, and then the benefit started. Just as the keynote speaker was starting, 2 resist members created diversion outside, passing out lube and condoms. All the security went to handle them, and that's when this happened. Gen Z infiltrated so deeply that Coalition Life had to send all of their volunteers home, because they didn't know who was who. And the benefit organizer who told the cops to let the Gen Z kids go She was one of them too. Fuck around and find out.
The state of New Mexico is setting aside $10 million for a new reproductive health clinic near the border with Texas. The clinic aims to provide a full spectrum of reproductive health care and will be prepared for a large patient load of those seeking abortions from both Texas and Arizona, states which have banned or restricted the medical procedure. The executive order also directs New Mexico's Department of Health to ensure abortion medications are available in public health clinics, which would widen access to reproductive health care in more remote and under-resourced parts of the state. Hopefully this goes some way in helping people from all three states access the care they need. The Catholic microstate of San Marino is set to legalize abortion. The San Marino Parliament has voted to legalize the medical practice within the first 12 weeks of pregnancy with medical consultation, and after 12 weeks if serious fetal anomalies put the parent's life or health at risk. While this is not a completely emancipatory policy, it is an incredible step forward for one of the last remaining European states to criminalize abortion under all circumstances. The legislative change came after a referendum was held last year where a whopping 77% of the citizens voted to overturn the patriarchal, outdated law. Elena D'Amelio, one of the advocates who collected signatures for a petition to hold the referendum, said, "We are satisfied. Before the new law legalizing it, women and pregnant people not only had to pay for it, you had to do it in secret. The new law also provides sex education in schools and compensates anyone who travels to Italy for an abortion if, for whatever reason, they are unable to obtain it in San Marino. Congratulations to all San Marinese people." The Republic of Malta is reforming their LGBTQ+ rights laws to include free gender-affirming surgery for trans people. The reform immediately followed the lifting of a ban on gay men donating blood. Malta's Prime Minister Robert Abella confirmed the change during Malta's Pride event on September 10th, where he told a local radio station that even more queer-positive changes are yet to come. In 2019, the country was named Rainbow Europe's best holiday destination for queer travelers. Right on, Malta. And on September 25th, over 6 million Cubans in more than 23,000 polling stations held a referendum to amend the family code of the Cuban Constitution. The referendum passed in a landslide with 67% approval, propelling Cuba to make official the most progressive family code in the world. This new code not only legalizes same-sex marriage, but equal adoption rights regardless of sexual orientation, recognizes the rights of transgender people, guarantees the right of all people to form family units without discrimination, recognizes the rights of surrogate mothers, and recognizes the role of grandparents in the family. It also extends labor rights to those who care for children, the elderly, or those with disabilities full-time. Oh, and it promotes comprehensive policies to address gender-based violence. Did we mention it outlaws corporal punishment and greatly expands the rights of disabled people? This code just keeps on giving. Congratulations to the Cuban people, and thank you for showing the world the power of direct democracy. More prisons in Michigan have been slated to close as the prison population declines. Activists have been working to close these prisons for years, some for decades, and we are so glad to see it. Michigan currently has 32,000 prison inmates, which, although being 32,000 too many, is still the lowest in more than 30 years. While this decision was logistical, activists will continue to push for a much more radical transformation: disarm, defund, dismantle, and abolish. Denny Tamaki, the incumbent governor of Okinawa, known for his staunch opposition to U.S. military presence on the Ryukyu Islands, has won a second term in office. His victory reflects the continued opposition of the Okinawan people to U.S. military troops and infrastructure, which are sources of pollution, the exploitation of local women, political corruption, and have the potential to drag Okinawans into unwanted conflicts across the Taiwan Straits. Tamaki, who himself is the child of a U.S. Marine who abandoned his Okinawan mother before being born, said, "My commitment to resolve the U.S. military base problem for the future of Okinawa has never been shaken." He vowed to continue to deliver the will of Okinawans to the Japanese central government. Though local governments have little say in diplomatic and military affairs, solidarity with Tamaki and the Okinawan people who are continuing to do whatever they can to resist U.S. occupation. Hasdeo Arand, one of central India's largest intact forests and the location of the country's longest-held anti-coal protests by Indigenous groups, is gaining increased support and inspiring mobilization from people in cities and towns across the region. In April, news of deforestation attempts in the area sparked outrage and protests. YouTubers, artists, and students also lent their support, with the hashtag #SaveHasdeo trending on Twitter. Protesters are calling for the end of all coal projects in Hasdeo Arand, as they will cause irreparable damage to nature and the indigenous communities living there. Alok Shukla of the nonprofit Chhattisgarh Bachao Andolan said the protesting communities were tired and often wondered how long they would have to fight, but this surge of support has strengthened their resolve and given a boost to their movement. This month, California passed a bill that includes restrictions on oil and gas drilling and a ban on the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. As one of the largest auto markets in the world, hopefully this move will signal that the age of the individual gas-powered car may be over sooner than we think. And in a historic victory for the people of the Wild Coast, a South African court declared unlawful and revoked the right given to fossil fuel giant Shell Oil for oil and gas exploration in the ecologically sensitive region. The ruling was issued by Judge President Selby Benenge of the High Court in Makanda. The verdict is the culmination of a months-long legal battle built on years of struggle by Indigenous and fishing communities and environmental activists to defend the Wild Coast against resource extraction and exploitation. Sinegugu Zukulu from Sustaining the Wild Coast said the fight of coastal communities versus Shell is a struggle for environmental justice, for the protection of rural livelihoods, for sustainable development, and for all life on the planet. Our heartfelt gratitude and congratulations to activists from the Wild Coast. Comrades, if you have good news from the current month, please send your stories to totalliberationpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to Javi for the positive news jams. Thank you to Cosmo for the positive news background. Thank you to Catherine, Nick, Jacob, and Seb for script writing help. Thank you so much to JC for editing this video, and to me, I guess, for doing a little bit of everything. Thank you, as always, to our glorious patrons who make the show possible. To help us expand our team and our output, please go to patreon.com/positiveleftistnews, or you can give us a one-time tip or donation. The link is in the description box below.
Those good news, yeah, come on, sometimes.